This is a video about, half a dozen or more deeds in my life and what they tell us about everybody's life and your life and possibilities for us all. First of them is my dad and I had a disagreement about the Vietnam War. He thought the 5 million collaterally killed Southeast Asians to fight a little George Washington down there who wanted freedom from French rule was okay, and I thought killing 5 million people collaterally while destroying a George Washington in a tiny country was contrary to everything in America's values and was a bullying, vile, evil Harvard University Kennedy School derived arrogance in the United States, justified by 800 GREs and the delusions that bright people from Harvard can't do evil. So we had a disagreement about that, and he cut off funding for me at MIT. Now, this is ridiculous because of how hard he and my whole family and I worked for me to get into MIT. And then to have the middle of my education there ruined by a year and a half of no money and no food showed how ignorant the family I came from was. But at any rate, I needed to eat. And the first thing that I did was I got a job early in the morning doing breakfast service at the ladies' dormitory because they gave you free breakfast if you worked there. So I ate one meal a day there. That was the immediate answer. I could do that within a day or two. And then while I was doing that, I wanted a longer-term resolution that would make me financially independent of my family and of MIT so I wouldn't go into student loan debt. And I decided to do a school on creativity for Harvard MIT faculty kids that would allow an entire romantic weekend from Friday night to Sunday night. We'd take care of the kids, which meant Friday night overnight and Saturday night overnight, plus all day Saturday and all day Sunday up until dinner. And the idea is the parents could go away to the Bahamas or something on Friday night. We'd take care of the kids, and they could come back Sunday dinner, and we'd pick them up. And then I used teenagers from the same families as staff. Paid them $100 a weekend, which at the time, this is 40 years ago, was 10 times what any job would pay them. So I had really good staff because we had any problems at all, we would fine them, the kids, for violating what we wanted, or simply choose any of 100 kids who wanted to be staff at that pay level. So paying our staff a huge increment over any other job they could get was a good way to get their attention. And they were really excellent at executing what we wanted. Then we had some insights into how you manage 142 kids. And remember, these were kids from every age, from 7 to 17. How do you manage kids? And the easiest way to manage kids like that is to run them crazy for the first 2 hours every morning before breakfast. And so we had monster time in the morning, where the teenage staff would dress up as various kinds of monsters and chase the kids and play ball games with the kids. But these were especially designed ball games where you had to run the entire time. Everyone ran. It was not baseball where you stand around. These were games where you had to run the entire time during the game. Basketball was fine, and modifications of basketball, which we invented, were fine. But we had the kids run for 2 hours flat every morning. And I mean, you ran the entire 2 hours. And of course, there were some kids that were not used to this, and so we were gentle on them the first weekend or two. But within a couple of weekends, we kept track of the laggards and made sure they didn't have any medical conditions, and then we kept them running too. We had a couple of rebels. We had a boy whose parents were very distant from him. You know, many of these parents were overeducated and were rather lousy parents. University professors in general create some psychopathic kids because they teach their kids rather than relate to them as people, some of them. And you've got Hollywood movies about how sick the kids can be psychologically from these professor parents. So we had some of that. And one kid had so little interaction with his parents that he was a violator. He would just listen to the rule and do the opposite because he sought attention. And in this case, negative attention was good attention for him. He just wanted to know that he existed. And I understood that intuitively. I had read a lot of psychology in college, and so I just sat on him for about 3 hours one morning and didn't listen to him, just sat on him so he couldn't move, and needed to go to the bathroom. I don't care, go to the bathroom in your pants. because you are going to get attention. And I didn't tell him that, but I knew in my head, you're going to get the negative attention in terms of me putting a limit to your bad behavior that your parents don't do. And I'm going to teach you that you exist, that you're real, and you're there to be dealt with, and by giving you 3 hours of my attention. And after 2 or 3 hours, he began to feel like he existed, and we started talking. It was really a miracle, like a switch turn, that I took the effort of 3 hours of my time to stop him, made him feel like he existed, and then once he felt like he existed, he really calmed down. And then we gave him a special role. The next day, it was a Saturday that he switched turns. So Sunday morning, we gave him a special role as my assistant. And because we wanted in a symbolic way to tell him he existed. And his parents were just absolutely astonished that Sunday picking him up. They were just absolutely, they had never seen him so normal and cooperative and partnering with me in this Sunday dinner. Another thing we did was we hired, catered the, we were getting a lot of money. I mean, I was making a huge amount. I was making 3 years of MIT tuition a weekend. And so we had a lot of money. $100 a kid per weekend, 142 kids, you added up. Man, we were making money hand over fist. And I knew how to market. I don't know where I got it from, maybe watching my dad, but I knew how to market. And I just, each weekend had a name of a famous artist and a famous scientist. And so we would recruit families to the Beethoven-Einstein weekend or the Linus-Pauling-Mozart weekend. And then when they showed reluctance to send their kid, we would say, so you're not interested in Mozart and Linus Pauling for your kid, right? You don't mind them missing Linus Pauling and Mozart. You don't mind your kid missing Beethoven and Einstein. The other kids are going to get Beethoven and Einstein, but you don't mind your kid missing Beethoven and Einstein. That's okay. You don't want Beethoven and Einstein. It's okay. I just kept saying the word Beethoven and Einstein 48 times in the conversation until I guilted these overeducated moms into saying, relenting and saying, okay, oh, Beethoven and Einstein, it's okay. And it worked wonderfully, just this mindless repetition of those two famous names. So that was a stroke of genius, it turned out. Didn't know it at the time, but it worked out to be a stroke of genius. So we had 142 kids per weekend on average. A couple of times we had 200. But it didn't matter. They were easy to manage because I knew how to organize with these giant charts I make. I could have organized 10,000 if I'd been ambitious. And we ran them all ragged for 2 hours Saturday and Sunday morning, and so they were peaceful all day because all of their chaotic little kid energy used up being chased by monsters and playing ball games. And then Sunday night we hired the most expensive patisserie dessert restaurant in Boston that made these 3-tier flowing cognac flaming desserts, and we would turn the lights down in the room and line the kids up on these tables and have these waiters and waitresses come in with these flaming desserts for each kid and then put that on video and give it to the parents. And the parents would pick the kids up during the dinner with the 3-tiered flaming cognac desserts, and it was so beautiful visually. And the kids were so excited by these desserts. They told all their other kids all during the next week. And then the kids who misbehaved didn't get that. The kids who misbehaved didn't get the 3 tiers. They got a bowl of ice cream. It was so visually evident who the bad guys were because they're sitting there with no flames and no 3 tiers and no cognac and no waiter or waitress, just a bowl of ice cream. So we used a bowl of ice cream as punishment. Which is, you have to be a genius to be able to turn a bowl of ice cream into a punishment for a 5-year-old kid. And then we had a curriculum on what the fundamental ideas were. And had the teenage staff teach the ideas and have a study group with me Friday night and Saturday night teaching. So I had to teach the ideas, the fundamentals to the teenage staff. And then they had, during the day from 10 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night, 12 hours in which to convey these 6 or 8 major ideas to the kids. And then we had little games for conveying the ideas. And it worked, actually. I mean, you got so that the kids, when I asked them, I'd ask them a month or 2 later, 4 sessions, 5 sessions later, about Einstein's big 8 ideas. And the kids could articulate that back to you. These were smart kids, some smart families, so that was partly helpful. And but we would do some of that during that closing dinner. I would randomly walk around the room and ask them about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. We wanted to do that because I would deliberately hit some kids I knew weren't there 2 weeks ago. And I would ask them about Beethoven's ideas or Mozart's ideas. And they couldn't answer because I didn't, and I'm sorry, Mr. Green, I didn't attend to that one. And so I just say that in a bigger voice so the parents can hear it. I'm sorry, Mr. Green, I didn't get Mozart's ideas because my stupid, cheap mother didn't send me. And that was another way to recruit people to join every weekend. So, you know, that was fun because it met my financial goals. So I didn't have student loans to deal with, and for the most part. And I made a hell of a lot of money, and I met a lot of faculty. And I solved 3 or 4 really bad kid behavior problems by convincing the kid, unlike his parents, that he really existed. Number 2 was not so different. I was at EDS Corporation. The General Motors new branch had hired 7,000 people, 2,000 of them as salesmen. And for 2 years, those salesmen sold nothing to General Motors because General Motors looked down on and had contempt for EDS, and EDS looked down on everybody in the world because their founder had this militarist culture because he'd never done anything military, and he was just a great salesman, Ross Perot. And he was so great a salesman that he sold his entire company to General Motors for billions of dollars and then bought it back for millions of dollars a few years later and then created a competitor to it. So he's a great salesman. He's a pretty miserable human being in many ways, but he's a great salesman. But I was there, and I had done some presentations that had riveted the GM audience and riveted the EDS audience, and I didn't know. This was the first job I had had, and I didn't know I was a great presenter, but turned out I was a great presenter. My boss was astonished as I was that I was a great presenter. And boy, if you're a great presenter in business, you can sell things. And I could spellbind an audience of 200. I think there was some EDS audience of 200 people or something, and I had to do some artificial intelligence report, and I was like one of 25 people presenting. And then I was #1 in all the comments after the event. People wanted to buy my AI for their own group at EDS. I was not selling. I was just explaining a project among all these other projects. But one day, because of that presentation thing, my boss came in and gave me, he said, "Richard, I am giving you 4 employees, and I want you to turn them into clones of you. And any questions?" And I have no idea why you're doing this. Anyway, bye. And you hear these 4 guys were out in the hallway, and I told them we don't have any work because nobody's selling anything. So we were drinking beer together, and which was illegal at the company. We were drinking beer together in the afternoon, and what should we do? And one of the kids said, "Why don't we solve the biggest problem the company has?" And I said, "Oh, that's going to be easy. They're not selling anything." So, well, I said, first of all, we really need to know what the biggest problem is and be sure we're right. So let's go to all the EDS managers and interview them for 10-minute interviews, asking them what the biggest problems of the company are, and then collect all that data and make a little 5-page report on it. And then let's go interview General Motors and ask them what our biggest problem is. And so we did. We interviewed about 50 EDS managers, and then we interviewed about 50 GM managers over the course of a month, and had a little 20-page book of what they all said were the biggest problems of my company, EDS. And it turned out that the biggest problems of my company was that it had a militarist culture, sticking out male genital organ type culture of being proud of ourselves and telling everybody, starting every conversation with how great we were in the way stupid Americans do all over the world. And as if telling other people that you are narcissistic, psychopathic, and in love with yourself is a way to convince people to trust you and do business with you. Only Americans are that stupid. Europeans and East Asians, fortunately, all of them have enough common sense from their mothers to know that praising yourself in the first part of a conversation is a good way to look mentally ill, not a good way to impress people with your virtues. And so we had this militarist, super male, super American culture that just made us look like idiots to General Motors. And so we called that the problem culture, and we defined that according to the answers on our survey. And then we reversed all of those traits to what a feminine culture, a solution culture would be, and which would be vastly more feminine. And then we designed a very, very feminine one-day workshop. And in this one-day workshop, it would be an EDS workshop where nobody from EDS gave any speeches except me. And I gave a 1-minute speech. And I started my speech in the morning by saying, I'm Richard Green. I'm from EDS. I am the only person from EDS who is going to speak to you today. And we're going to, in the morning, have 40 of the best mid-level engineers in General Motors give you projects that have not been supported that are vital to the technology future of General Motors. And in the afternoon, we're going to have corresponding demonstrations from other companies that you can touch and feel and see and ask questions of for corresponding to each of those proposed projects by your engineers in the morning. And so I'm not here to tell you anything about how great EDS is. I'm here for you to tell you how great you are. This is a meeting structured so that you can see your own General Motors greatness in detail and how you can make yourself greater looking at demonstration projects that correspond to your own ideas already going on in other companies that you could do better with our help. And so that's what we did. I got a standing ovation from that 1-minute speech, and we got that on video. And 400 GM managers in a hotel giving a standing ovation to a 1-minute speech by a non-manager member of EDS was a miracle to our management. We did 3 of those, and finally the third one was a truck and bus, which at the time I think was $22 billion a year of sales. It was the biggest division of General Motors. And we had got nothing to show for this, and I was getting 400 managers at these local hotels and printing 500-page books for each of these 400 managers and another 1,600 of 500-page books printed for 1,600 other managers in each division. So we mailed 500-page conference reports to 2,000 top managers of each division for 3 divisions in a row with nothing to show for it. And then I got a phone call one day from a GIRM, G-I-I-R-M, inviting me to a GIRM meeting at Truck and Bus. And we sat there for 3 hours, and finally he said, are the EDS guys there? And we raised their hands. And he said, you have $17 million and 2 weeks to tell me what you're going to do with it. And then I went back, and my boss called me that night saying, I heard you went to a GIRM meeting. Wow, nobody's been to a GIRM meeting. Nobody's been invited. And what did they do? And I said, they said that we had $17 million and 2 weeks to tell them what we're going to do with it. And is that good? And he says, it sounds $17 million better than anybody's done so far. And then I got lunch with Ross Perot and lunch with Roger Smith, the chairman. So we went all up and down the hierarchy. We were the first sale other than by the chairman of EDS to General Motors. And then I got flown to Langley, Virginia to the head of research for the CIA to solve a problem at lunch. Ross Perot's lover, friend, secretary, or something was the pilot of the plane flying me there. And the CIA had this stupid problem that I had solved years ago. And so they explained it to me at lunch, and I explained what the solution was in about 1 minute in answer to their problem. And I got kicked by her under the table for giving them the solution before they paid a lot of money to us. And so we negotiated a price for that lunch after the fact. So I found out I could sell there by reversing the culture of an organization, particularly reversing the maleness that causes Americans in general to be so ineffective in many ways. Number 3 is cured several women of rheumatoid arthritis. This is probably the most important thing that my life will have done. And then I found a doctor who's a good ally because he and I are on exactly the same track as to what its cause are. And if you know people suffering from it, they should give me a call. Basically, it's a liver function. Liver cleans the blood, and so small women have a problem with the liver not cleaning the blood. And because the bile tube is too narrow in them. And overweight people have a problem because the bile tube gets squeezed. So the liver doesn't get clean, so it doesn't clean the blood. So waste products build up in the synovial fluid, and they're broken down there into pieces and seen as enemy and attacked with inflammation by the immune system. If you get the liver functioning to clean the blood, then there's no waste in the synovial fluid, and the inflammation goes away. It's that simple. Not only does the liver have to work, but you have to make sure blood flows through the body. There are 22 things that stop blood flow in the body. Oily, heavy dinners will, etc., etc. You have to change your lifestyle to get those 22 things, and that's why so many women never escape, because to get your blood flowing, there are 22 ways to stop it flowing. And you got to, for particular women, you got to do most or all of these 22 things as lifestyle changes in order to have clean blood. The next thing I did was I sold 600 copies of my high-performance work system software at Xerox before the vice president we worked for had been formally told the product was soon going to be ready to ship. And that's because some intelligence agencies, in this case the NSA, was listening in on our email. So we got this phone call from the unknown guy in Washington, D.C. I'm from an agency in Washington, D.C., and we want 600 copies of your software. And I never heard of you, and that's okay. Don't worry about that. We'll pay up front. And how did you know our software exists? We haven't announced it. We don't have a brochure. Nothing's been said outside the company. And well, we just have sources of information in the company. Bullshit. They were listening in on their email. So that was cool. And it's sort of, you know, my bosses were not certain they wanted to, this was on the right track or not. And so selling 600 copies before the product was announced was a good indication that this was going to fly. Again, that's sort of my, if you wanted to talk about my best single sale, that was probably it, selling without any work or tactics whatsoever. I was hired at the University of Chicago 2 years before my PhD because my book, Global Quality, was judged a work of genius by two of the founders of the University of Chicago Business School. And one of those founders asked me to re-engineer the computer systems at the University of Chicago, which were 30 years out of date. And we did that. And it was really just doing the quality approaches, measuring customer satisfaction with the computer systems there. And the customer data told you everything that needed to be changed, so you didn't have to be a genius. Once you had valid customer data and had decided to implement based on it, things got better in a hurry. It was so simple. You know, you got the data, you execute it. That's it. I also led a consult at Procter & Gamble, and I can't take total credit for this. I had smart people inside of Procter & Gamble who knew what the company needed, but didn't know how to get there. And then I was this master of Japanese competition and how to protect yourselves from Japanese competitors coming into your market in North America. So I gave a bunch of videos on that all over P&G management. And we had this great idea of videotaping audience reaction to my remarks and me at the same time with two cameras. And the upper managers of each division I spoke at were so defensive. And we don't have to worry about Cal, and they're a little small company, we're a big company, and they're in Japan, blah, blah, blah. But they had just bought Jerkins right across from the Ivory Deal Research Center of P&G in Cincinnati. And the chairman of Cal stood on the steps of Jerkins and looked across the street at P&G's Ivory Deal Technical Center and said, we're going to bury you in 20 years in North America. So that suddenly got everybody's attention. And we had these videos of all these defensive upper-level manager reactions saying that P&G doesn't need to change anything because these Japanese are nothing we have to worry about. And then they go buy Jerkins across the street and scare the hell out of the chairman of P&G. And Vice Chairman Lako saw these videos of defensive upper manager reaction and then had every manager at P&G hear my speech and look at that video we made of defensive manager reactions. And it changed the culture. Every manager at P&G saw the red pulsing vein in the neck and the angry question to me challenging my data. And we've been very careful to fact check everything I said. So I said nothing that didn't have solid facts behind it. And their denial of my message and their anger and emotionality. Men are so baby-like and emotional at work as opposed to being professional. And you just hurt their little tiny monkey prides a little bit and they act like an upset monkey for the next 5 weeks. Very vengeful. I found that American men are extraordinarily vengeful people. Especially the higher you go, these little CEOs and vice presidents will get revenge on you for years if you insult their monkey pride. That's it's banana land, really. God knows how they make any money with idiots like that at the top. But we had that video of defensive manager reaction, and Vice Chairman Lako had everybody watch it, and with my original speech, and you heard my speech just saying things factually true, and then you saw these irate, nasty questions from the top local guy, and you got the idea. These guys weren't prepared to be global at all. These guys were stuck in Cincinnati and arrogant and out of date and defensive and didn't have a clue how to compete with Japan. And so that spread around the country, changed the culture. The whole workforce lost confidence in their management. And we have to change this way of dealing with Japan. And they did. They got task force in every part of the company and every product line to do the number one thing that Cal threatened to do, which is Cal had just given away a computer software system that united its software with customer software in Japan. And they were going to come to North America and do that with Walmart ahead of P&G. And so I lit a fire under those P&G guys. You got to connect your computer systems to Walmart this year. And don't talk about money. You, P&G, pay for it. This is life and death for you. If they get Cal software and order from Cal automatically and you're still niggling over money, you're going to be dead. So you get the day, you forget about money. You pay for it all yourself. You give it as a gift to your biggest customer, Walmart. And here's a system that allows you to automatically get reorders from us and to the right shelf at the right time and change policy anytime you want. We'll write the software and maintain it, and you just use it to order from us. A gift from us to you. And they did that. And it worked. Cal never did enter the market in P&G's area in North America. So I'm kind of proud of that. And then I was helped by smart people inside of P&G. You know, Larry Houston's a genius. Really is a genius. And then I wrote an 880-page. I took my homework at the University of Michigan, and I wrote an 886-page book on global quality. I called it World Quality, and I still like that title better, but the publisher changed it to Global Quality because they liked Roman language better than Greek. And it's really my homework from the University of Michigan, 2 masters and a PhD there. And it's a combination of papers on software and papers on quality and how they interact. In particular, it showed how quality was the theory of business as a horizontal set of processes that allowed the web to be easily and automatically applied to business. And people don't realize it, but the web empowered business so quickly, so easily, because total quality gave everybody from 1975 to 1990 a horizontal, process-oriented, non-monkey hierarchy, non-vertical theory of what business is that fit technology perfectly. So I wrote that book, and it was judged by University of Chicago Business School co-founders as a work of genius. One of them wrote a memo to me calling it a work of genius, which is on my webpage. And then Purdue University faculty voted it one of the 21 best books on quality. They had a thing called the Excellence 21, and Global Quality, my book, was one of those Excellence 21, is one of the 21 best books on quality. There's a while where my book was the biggest book by one author on quality, but Duran then came out with this almost 2,000-page thing that defeated me quite solidly later on. I've got books on creativity now that are 3,700 pages long, so I don't think anybody's going to defeat me on creativity like they did on quality. So I have the biggest, most comprehensive, most practical, applicable book on creativity in the world, called Are You Creative? 60 Models, 3,700 pages at 400 words a page, although I printed out 2,000 words a page, so it's about 800 pages when you do that. I set up new businesses at 7 global corporations: Sekisui, Matsushita, EDS, Coopers & Lybrand, Xerox PARC, Thomson Electric in Europe, and NV Philips in Eindhoven. That's because I'm really not a career guy. I don't really like all the kiss-up in politics you have to do to compete for an existing VP-ship. I would rather create a new business and become head of that without competing with anybody. It's just a style thing. And also, I have an imagination about how to take an idea, even an old idea, and make it exciting as hell. And so people want to buy it. And one way to create a product is to make people want to buy something. And give it a name, and a name that excites people, and then they want to buy it. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's got great technology or not. If the idea, the way you package it, shows people how their life's going to be better if they get this thing, they'll want it. And very interesting, at Xerox, one of my software ventures failed because it was taken from me politically by a vice president direct report who thought that now that I had designed the software and built it, he could replace me with a guy easier to control so that he could get the whole venture credit. So he hired secretly another technology guy to take over from me. But this guy at Xerox who did this to me is not a technology guy, and he feels inferior and weak about technology. So he and this technology guy he hired decided to impress themselves with their own marketing by calling the software a piece of advanced software, which is so stupid because customers, the last thing anybody wants to buy is a piece of advanced software. So they marketed this product. Now, I had built this product as a quality team database for your company. And it automates all the reports on quality that you have to give to management. And so instead of your team wasting hours every month writing up reports for management, you just put the minutes, make this software take the minutes of your meeting, and it will automatically reformat those minutes into reports for management and save every team 10 hours of writing a month. So it was a simple quality team database to take boring report writing work for management away from the teams and give you all 10 hours a month of free time you don't have now. People loved that. Wow, that's cool. And it wasn't nothing advanced about it. It was helping you have a better life. 10 hours a time we're giving you with this product. And that's the way I market, to help real people where they are. And but these guys took it away from me, and I was leaving Xerox for the University of Chicago. Secretly already arranged that at the time, so I didn't mind. And so here this stupid guy, my partner, takes over the project, and his male hormones are very proud that now he's in control and not me. And he's got my software, so he feels like he's fooled me. And he hires this stupid outside technical guy who's created some stupid venture game business somewhere, who's going to do more than me. And then they go to these conferences and market this as advanced work coordination system from Xerox. And it's so interesting. Nobody attends their booth because nobody except them use the word advanced anywhere in their product advertising. And the reason this guy, the little guy that he hired, and this guy, my partner who betrayed me, the reason they used the word advanced to impress themselves because they were both technically weak people. And I'm not a technically weak guy, so I don't need to call my products advanced software. So he's marketing this advanced system that everybody's scaring everybody away. And, you know, it's a shame because it could have very easily been a success if he'd just done what I was going to do. But he didn't understand I was a marketing genius, too. And the cookie crumbles that way. And Xerox has so much dead wood in it from Monopoly days that, you know, I had to partner with somebody, and they were almost all dead wood. So it was hard to be safe at a company with that much dead wood in management from Monopoly. Then I have a question-finding model of creativity, which is one of my 60 models of creativity. And it's a one-page thing of 64 ways that creative people find great questions to pursue answers for. And I sold that one-page diagram to Procter & Gamble for $24,000. I still have a copy of the contract. And so if you make a creativity model that is comprehensive, detailed, and practical enough on one page, you can make $24,000 for selling the one page. So I kind of like that. I think that's fun. And so my kids in class sometimes tell me, what good is it to read all the books I read? 3 books a day, 100 books a month, 1,000 books a year. What good is all that? Well, you make diagrams that you can sell for $24,000 for one page of work. And then I'm a good teacher in terms of what my grads have done. I have 39, and I'm told 2 more, so 41 companies, design companies now launched and created by grads of my research seminar. So they run their own design companies. I've got one in Milan, I've got a bunch in Tokyo, I've got a bunch in Korea, I've got a bunch in China. I've got 2 of my research seminar students who are CEOs of companies with more than 2,000 employees already. One of them the leading medical equipment maker in Taiwan, and one of them the number 2 cosmetics company in Thailand, who are CEOs at age 34. I have the #1 marketer in Asia for Procter & Gamble, is my student Shinsuke. And he was trained by me in what's wrong with P&G culture and how to fix it. And he did, and it worked just perfectly. Just perfectly. He's so rare. He's wealthy enough on his own that he can tell P&G to go to hell whenever he wants to. And that gave him the courage to violate all of their norms and culture about marketing and their database mania, and show that celebrity marketing will allow them to do 2 things: be more innovative than Lever Brothers and sell more than Lever Brothers. And he was right, and it worked. And the president, local Asia president, warned him that he was violating a lot of P&G tradition, and if this went wrong, he'd be fired. And but boy, just instead of, I told him, don't you worry about that guy. Those guys are an idiot. Those guys who grow up in the P&T system are idiots. They're little cowards hiding behind data, and they are missing so much because of the cowardice with which they hide behind data. And the internet's going to do the data better than them, so they are out of date. Their system is going to be killed by the internet. So they better learn celebrity marketing quickly. Right now, Lever Brothers is running innovation circles around. I told them. So that ends this point. The point of all of these stories is that ideas work. And that they work really when people don't like you, when you don't have a management position, when you don't have any power or money, and still you end up revolutionizing entire companies if you have a good idea or two. And all you need is 400 GM managers in 3 hotel rooms. And that was cool, that EDS, the first one, because we printed 2,500 page books 3 times in a row without any money. And the printer, was getting antsy. That's 1 million pages. When are you going to pay me? And my boss finally came in after the truck and bus, one of these workshops, and said, anything I can do for this thing? I heard you got these 400 GM managers coming for a truck and bus meeting. Can I come? And I said, sure, boss. Anything I can do for you? And I said, well, we've actually printed 2 or 3 million pages, and we've never paid the printer, and we've used the hotel, and we haven't paid the hotel yet. We just dropped the name GM, and GM is so big, people love the money they get from that, so they just cooperated with us. I said, to not make me a liar or a criminal, it'd be really nice if we actually paid the hotels and paid the printer. So he said, I'll see what I can do, and then next morning on my desk was a note that he had arranged for the printers to be paid and the hotel to be paid. So that was cool. So that's, I did the whole project without telling any manager. If I told any manager, some committee of middle management idiots that are all cowards would have sat there and worried about it and turned it into something safe. Right? You know that. You know that. So, it worked because I skipped all of middle management. I didn't go to upper management because some greedy, egotistical, male, hormone, demented bastard would have stolen it from us for his own glory. So it worked because they didn't know either. It worked because a little guy in a company didn't tell middle management, whose cowardice would have sicklied it over with the pale cast of thought, and he didn't tell upper management, who would have psychopathically stolen it from it. It worked because I knew that management's the problem, not the ordinary employees. It's management's got a system of monkey glorification of top monkeys as thieves, and the monkey glorification of cowardice because they want the middle monkeys to follow and kiss the butt of the upper monkeys.